Alrighty lads, welcome back to Ask Dan Anything. And today I've got a question from one of the Brojo members, Paul. His question is, what would be your top 3 suggestions to bring joy and excitement back into my job? Okay. Very common sort of question and dilemma to face if you've been in the same career or relationship or whatever for a long period of time. The thrill wears off and you want to invigorate it again. Yeah. So I'm going to give you my top 3 tips, and the third one may be a little counterintuitive, might surprise you a bit. The first one is usually the thrill and joy goes out of a job when you become really good at it, when the difficulty level comes down to easy mode, where you're an expert. It's lacking challenge. And you may be comfortable in it, you may be getting a lot of validation and pats on the back for how good you are at it, but the fact is it's unsatisfying if it's unchallenging. It's too hard to be present and focused when you can do everything on autopilot. So all the ingredients needed for joy and satisfaction and contentment are missing simply because it's too easy. So how do you solve that? Projects and challenges. Look at your job and ask yourself, how can I make this more thrilling in a challenging way? Taking on a project that's bigger than anything you've done before, beginning processes or new challenges, solving problems that nobody else is solving. What I used to do when I was in Department of Corrections and I was in a role for long enough to get bored at it, I'd look at some problem within corrections that hadn't been solved and nobody was tackling, and I'd go to my boss and ask if I could turn that into some sort of personal project, something I could work on to try and fix, especially the really unsolvable issues. New things that can be developed, new ideas that can be experimented and played with. You'll probably need to work with your boss around these ideas, but the key here is to bring in something new and difficult where you'd be a beginner, where you'd have to develop new skills, maybe even have to go on training courses, and it will give you something that is so challenging that the rest of your easy job actually becomes a relief from those little pieces of project work, and that in itself will make the easy parts more enjoyable. They'll become your safe place to go after you've been pushing yourself. So that's my first recommendation. My second one is to use your job as training ground for other areas of self-development. Okay. So the job itself might be easy, but there's other challenges for your personal development and growth available within your workplace. For example, let's say you wanted to work on your connections. Well, you can use the people you work with to practice being more bold, being more honest, being more vulnerable, being more interested and curious. When you go to the lunchroom, instead of sitting by yourself reading the newspaper and eating your smoked salmon or whatever, I don't know why I thought of smoked salmon, you can go talk to that person who you've never talked to. You can go down to that section or that department of the work where you don't know anyone and get to know them all one at a time. You can start to use your job as a place to build a massive social network, whereas before you might have been very isolated. So you might be able to work on connections, leadership. You can ask your boss for more responsibility. It may not be necessarily challenging, but put you in a position where you have to manage other people, where you are responsible for how well something goes, to give yourself that leadership challenge. There's plenty of places in the job to practice courage. Like maybe you've only been working with clients who are easy to get along with. Go ask your boss for some more difficult clients, ones that will challenge your courage. And discipline. Maybe you've become sloppy and easily distracted at work. You can work on the concept of discipline at your workplace, the value of discipline. You can work on checking your emails only once a day. Read Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week and apply the principles at your workplace. Try to become honed and efficient. So what I'm saying here is essentially there's a lot of ways that you can work on aspects of yourself and use your job as the dojo to train in. But this brings me to the third and I think the most important point. If you're struggling to find joy in your work, then my top recommendation is to look for a new job. Simple as that. Until you find something that's so meaningful and impactful for you that you don't need to try and make it enjoyable, and that it doesn't lose its flavor after a period of time. Until you found a job like that, keep looking. Like I did. I do coaching now. I've been doing coaching for 5 years, and I don't need to try at all to make it interesting. It stays interesting because I've nailed it. This is exactly what works well for me to feel great about what I do for a job. But I've done at least 14 other jobs before this one. Some of them lasted a few years, some of them only a few months. But because they couldn't stay enjoyable just in the work itself, I moved on. It's easy to become complacent and stuck in something because you've got a stable income, because it's what you've always done, it's because you're an expert at it. But if none of those things make it meaningful, it's worth moving on, even if it means starting as a beginner. You can always get back to expertise level. Wouldn't you rather be an expert in something that you fucking love doing? And if that's not how you feel about your current work, I'd suggest moving on. Now, that doesn't mean you have to hand in your notice and be broke. You can develop a project on the side, like I did. I was coaching people on the side of my job, and then my job became a training ground for coaching. It became a place where I was building up capital to start my business. It became a place where I could get training programs and even find my first few clients, or some of my first few clients. So my current job became more meaningful because it was now serving the future that I was building. So those are my top 3 tips to make your job more satisfying, meaningful, enjoyable, whatever it is. If you've got more tips, comment below. If you've managed to turn a boring job into an interesting one, share your story below. Subscribe to the channel. Email me dan@brojo.co.nz if you've got any ideas, questions or comments, and I'll see you all next time.